Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another installment of Coffee Chats. My name is Kyra Dawkins, and I'm so excited to be hosting one of our incredible authors. So today ultimately, I just enjoy coffee chats as a space because we invite a variety of different perspectives into the room, and there are so many ways in which there is a synergy between the content that is actually explored in our book and the process by which we write the book. And I think that our author today will particularly highlight this in discussing the law of attraction. And so, without further ado or delay, I'm so excited to bring our incredible guest on today. Drum roll. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, thank you.
How
Excited to be
are
here.
you? Welcome.
Thank you.
So, would you like to formally introduce yourself to our wonderful audience today?
Sure. My name's Lisa Kentner. I'm a mom to a brainiac child who is decided today she's going to Georgetown, which I'm excited about. And I have a
Yay!
yes. It's been her dream since she's 8 years old. So we're really excited. I have a small marketing business that I've had for 11 years, and I'm an author now after going through the program with manuscripts.
For
I live
so
in Michigan, and so it's supposed to be spring, but Michigan has not figured that out yet. So we're
Oh,
dealing with
yeah.
gray, cold weather.
Yeah, I'm currently in New York City, but I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. So when I heard that the Michigan area got hit with snow, I was like, wow, resonating with the Midwest. The
Yes.
Midwesterner in me hurts alongside you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. But I'm sure that, snow in May means less skies of gray. I just made that up. Maybe that's true. Maybe like in the
Okay.
summer
I wish that was
it'll
true,
be
but I
pleasant.
can't. Yeah. We have a beautiful summer, but getting there is a painful process sometimes.
Oh, amen to that. Amen to that. Also, notwithstanding the hailstorms in July. What? Anyway, to
Yeah.
move on officially to our first question for today. Um, so you just shared that, and I had the absolute privilege of working alongside you, like as you went through the program as an author. But to start, when was the moment you knew you wanted to write a book to begin with?
it it was interesting. I was never one of those people that thought, "Oh gosh, I'm going to write a book," and I was never one that was writing all the time. I had an idea for a book a long time ago, but I didn't know how to write a book. And then it was sort of a gradual process with this book. I had gotten divorced, and I had all these good things happening while going through that process, which wasn't a fun process, but good things were happening because I was using law of attraction. And I was visiting with a friend of mine, kind of telling her what was happening, and the changes in my life. But I had these good things that just kept dropping in my lap. People would call them coincidence, but they weren't. And I said, I felt like I had to get these out. Like I had to get the stories out. And she said, "Oh, I have a friend in Chicago that she'd met through a coaching program who had gotten divorced and written a book. And she was in the process of going through the program when I talked to her. So she introduced us virtually online, and I talked to the woman for probably an hour. And she told me about the program at Georgetown, the manuscripts program, and then gave me Professor Eric Kester's name and number. And he and I didn't actually connect at that time. I got in the middle of the divorce and things were crazy. And then once I got through everything, I thought, I'm going to go back and look at that program because good things kept continuing to happen even while going through this difficult period. And so I went to the website, and then I scheduled a call with him and told him my idea about writing about the law of attraction and how I used it going through the divorce to keep things as positive as they could be. And I gave him some examples of little stories that happened to me. And he said, "That's great." And I had another idea, but he said, "No, write this book." And I go, "Okay." I go, "But I don't know how to write a book." And he said, "You don't have to know how to write a book. We teach you how to write a book." and he's quite the salesperson. And up until that point, I was thinking about it, but I wasn't sure. And as soon as I talked to him, I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to sign up and do it. And normally I would have thought about it and done more research. And I just thought, no, if I don't do it now, I won't do it. And so it was sort of gradual buildup. And then when I talked to him, that was it. So I signed up and went through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, what I appreciated about that story is that in a way, like, I mean, perhaps, please feel free to push back on me, etc. But like, to an extent, the law of attraction, based off of what I understand of it anyway, like played a huge role in this opportunity coming in your lap, regardless, particularly during a turbulent time in your life.
Absolutely. The friend that knew the person in Chicago, that knew Professor Eric Kester, who's at Georgetown, and daughter's going to Georgetown. I mean, that's all law of attraction at work, big time. So definitely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Definitely. Always at work.
Always. Well, speaking of the law of attraction, my next question for you would be, how would you define the law of attraction? Because admittedly, this word is sort of, or it's said a lot, and as somebody who's like heard about it and like heard different people discuss it, like I don't know like the precise definition, and maybe different people use it in different ways. And I'm just curious about how you use it or how you view it in your book and life.
Okay. I think if you look it up, you're going to get a bunch of different definitions. But I approach my book I'm a common sense person. Like, let's break it down simple, and what makes sense, common sense. So to me, the law of attraction, it's a thought process or philosophy that says the simplest way to describe it is like attracts like. But what it really means is if you're thinking positive thoughts, you're going to bring more positive things to you. If you're thinking, and it is always at work, you can't shut it off. But if you're thinking negative thoughts, you're going to bring negative things to you. So we're in control of our thought process, and we have to really focus on those positive thoughts so that we can bring more good things to us. So to me, it's a way to think, and kind of philosophy and a practice to bring good things into your life. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense. I mean, it's interesting because in my mind, you say, like, what's weird is that it's all about, like, again, context and like different conflations that pop into my brain. So when you say like attracts like, that's interesting because then there's always the whole context of like opposites attract, but I know that that's like a completely separate thing. So I guess
it is. A good example would be before you get out of bed in the morning, if you look out the window and it's Michigan and it's gray and you're like, oh, this is going to be a stinky day, you're probably going to have a stinky day. But if you look out and you go, okay, it's raining, but if we didn't have the rain, we wouldn't have the flowers. So I'm going to have a great day. If you can take a few seconds every morning before you get out of bed and think about things that make you happy or bring you joy, you can set a totally different tone for your entire day. So that's a good example of like attracts like. So you start your morning with good thoughts, and then the good thoughts will continue. Or in reverse, on those days when you like catch your purse on the door and you spill your coffee on your clothes going to work or school, and the dog makes a mess in the kitchen. It's like, and then you keep thinking, oh my gosh, could this day get any worse? And all these bad things are happening. And then they just keep continuing to happen. So it's, again, like attracts like. So you have to train your brain to think positive so you can bring more good thoughts. And then the more good thoughts bring more good thoughts. So it's just really getting in the practice of training or pivoting. When you feel yourself thinking negatively, pivot and turn it around and think something positive.
I see. See, that makes more sense. I just think that ultimately, like, people use different words in different contexts, and as a result, they can not see in the way in which certain, like, language, like, as you've learned or as we've all learned within our field and as our craft as authors, like, language precision is like important. But I also really appreciate how you just explained that concept in a very accessible way, where I'm like, yes, I understand the context through which and by which law of attraction could be applicable to one's day-to-day life.
Yeah, and I mean, it can apply to everything. Relationships, like you were talking about, and when you said opposites attract, is it they have opposite thought patterns or opposite interests, but they may have common thought patterns too. So you kind of have to drill down to figure out, when you're talking relationships, is it what you're thinking about that you attract? You know, that can get you can get into a lot of detail there, the relationships. Still working on that part, by the way, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh my. I mean, what's interesting is that now that you're describing like attracts like, and like positivity attracts more positivity, I've also heard the term manifesting. So would you say that manifestation and the law of attraction, are those two terms interchangeable, or are those slightly different things?
If you look at the actual definitions, I think they can be interchangeable. But to me, law of attraction is kind of the broad umbrella. It's the whole philosophy. And the manifestation is, in my definition or my opinion, would be the manifestation is, let's say I want to manifest more money into my life. And so I focus on what I want and get specific on what you want. You know, is it so much more per month or so much per year, and focus on that. But you can't just sit in your living room and go, oh gosh, I want $1 million by the end of the year, and hope somebody ding dongs your doorbell and drops off $1 million. You have to put activities or things in play that will help you reach that $1 million goal, or whatever that number is. So to me, manifestation is focusing on what you want, not on what you don't want, and putting in activities or steps to reach that goal. It's not where somebody's just going to hand it to you. You've got to make it happen, but it all starts with the thought process first. Does that?
I think one of my favorite things that you just pressed into in that description is that, you mentioned it before, but you like put even finer point on it just then, is that you don't want to, like, it's not about what you don't want, it's about what you want. It's about like,
absolutely.
It's about like not even inviting what could be negative in by saying you don't want it.
That's very true. And think about, this is an example, is when people say, you know, they want, maybe they have an illness and they're like, oh, I don't want to have cancer. I don't want to have any, you know, I don't want to be sick. Or I have a friend that would always say, oh, I always get a sinus infection in September. Guess what? She always gets a sinus infection in September. And I think if she would turn it around and say, I'm healthy, September's my healthiest month, you're focusing on what you want, not what you don't want. So you don't want to focus on the illness or the sickness. You want to focus on health and picturing all your cells healthy. And a lot of times too, if you can assume that whatever you're trying to manifest has already happened and talk about it as if it's happened. And I do that with my clients. They'll say, oh, I'll be so happy if this happens. And I'll be, no, when it happens, not if, but when. And it's those little tiny things that make the difference in your thought process. And then it makes it easier to bring those things to you and easier to keep continuing to think those good thoughts. And the more you practice those kinds of things, the quicker you can get when something bad does happen. Because it's not, you know, it's not saying that something bad won't ever happen to you, but it's what you do is, instead of letting that bad thing ruin your afternoon or your day or your week or your month or your year, you recognize that it happened. And then how can you pivot and say, okay, this happened. What's the lesson I'm supposed to learn? Instead of going, oh, this is so terrible, my life's so horrible. What's the lesson I'm supposed to learn? And then that can turn it into a positive. And sometimes you don't know the lesson until a little bit later down the road, but usually there's a reason why that bad thing happened. And often it's before something good happens. So if you can keep your head right, even during those bad things, a lot of times you'll end up, most of the time, I would say you end up better when you get to the other side and then can look back at things too. But it's not letting something bad take up more time than it should.
Right. It's like claiming victory in advance.
Exactly. And assuming you're already there and acting
Mm.
like it and talking like it makes it easier to have it happen.
Beautifully said. I mean, you already indicated how the law of attraction sort of brought you to the moments of your creative process. Like the law of attraction, in many ways, brought you to the moment where you decided to write your book. Beyond that
Absolutely.
decision to actually write your book, how has the law of attraction shaped your creative process, like since you began writing?
It definitely did, because when I signed up, I was like, I don't know how to write a book. I mean, I had no, I can write, like I write for business, but to sit down and write a book, I was like, And so I started, okay, I'm going to write my first chapter. And then I pictured what it was going to feel like to get that chapter on the books, or written down. And then, and going through the whole process, I told myself at the beginning, I'm like, these people know what they're doing, because I'm always a person, well, why do we do it that way, or why? And I just said, I'm not going to ask why. I'm just going to try and do what they told me to do, or told me to do. So I'd meet the benchmarks. And so law of attraction helped me reach each of those benchmarks, because I would picture myself finishing the first chapter and what that would feel like. And then turning in the first manuscript, on July 1st or whatever that date was, what was that going to feel like to actually be done with that? And then what was it going to feel like to see the cover of my book, which that like almost made me cry. It was so beautiful.
It
The
is beautiful,
designers did
guys.
such
It's beautiful.
Thank you. The designers did such a good job. And then what it was going to feel like to feel like holding my book, like a book that I wrote. What was that going to feel like? So that law of attraction kind of got me through the whole thing. Because again, I had no clue what I was doing as far as writing a book, but I used it to keep positive and go, well, if other people have done it, surely I can figure it out too, with a lot of help from everyone. So it definitely helped me through the process, picturing in advance what it was going to feel like to complete the next step that I needed to finish.
Yeah, claiming victory in advance. The law of attraction. So, as I ask this final question, I'm also going to share and like open, because we do have a live audience with us. I've been sharing a couple of comments, but I am going
Ooh.
to drop this here so that as I ask my second to last question, people who have questions in the audience can drop them.
Okay.
So my second to last question is, so you sort of mentioned why it's important to like how seeing other people alongside you sort of helped you visualize what success would look like for you. But more specific, like in other ways, why is it important for authors to pursue community and or external accountability during the creative process? And do you think that that might play a role in the law of attraction as well?
Oh, absolutely. I'd still be thinking about writing a book had I not gone through the program, because it held me accountable. My editor would say, okay, write 3,000 words this week. And I'd be like, okay. And I would do it. I might do it at the very last minute because I found out I'm a deadline writer. But if I had not had the program and the other people to talk to, and to go find a publisher and have all that lined up with the people that helped me through the whole thing, I would never have gotten it done. It just wouldn't. To have somebody go, it's like Rent a Boss. I do that with some of my clients. I have Rent a Boss service where I hold them accountable to their marketing. Same thing with this. I was held accountable. Like I signed up for the program. I wanted to finish the program. Well, to finish it, I had to do the steps along the way. And I didn't want to tell my editor, sorry, I didn't write anything this week. I didn't want to do that. She's busy and she's got other people she could help. And I wanted her help. So I wanted to do what I was supposed to do so she would continue to help me. So to me, having the accountability again would never have gotten it done. And in the class, Eric said, when people try to write and publish a book by themselves, only 2% ever get it done. But the numbers of the people going through this program that get it done are huge. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. So that was enough for me. I was like, okay, if I do this, I will publish a book. And so I just followed the steps, and everybody held me accountable to finishing what I needed to do.
And now you have a beautiful, like exceptionally beautiful published book.
Thank you. Thank you. I do love the cover. It's really pretty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the content matches.
I'm getting good comments. It's fun. I mean, and again, when you get somebody that says, I read your book and this is what I took away from it, and this is how it helped me, that's like the first person that did that. It's like made me cry. It was just, that was the reason. It was, and somebody else in the class had said, you write the book you need to read. And that really stuck with me because I think I did. And to have somebody read it and get something out of it and can change their thought process to help improve their lives, that's crazy good.
I would say it's pretty awesome. I mean, to that effect, some of the questions we're getting in from our live audience here. Speaking of comments, Susan shared that it's a great book by an excellent author. Woo! Also,
Thanks, Susan.
I actually wanted to ask you a quick follow-up question about this before we get to Susan's question. So Susan mentioned, I like the workbook type activities that you included throughout the book. Do you think it's important to, like, particularly when talking about law of attraction, to talk about like application? Like, do you think that application can play a huge role in like self-help, or a huge role in like a lot of like thought leadership oriented books in general?
Absolutely, because just read something, it might stick in your brain, but if you're not doing something to put it to use, you're getting a little bit, but you're not getting the full benefit of having read the book and putting the actions into place. And the activity, again, I'm coming from common sense, trying to make it very simple, especially for people that aren't familiar with attraction, to give them little things that are easy to do. They don't cost any money. It just takes a little bit of time. I thought it was helpful. And those are the things that when I started reading about law of attraction that I did that worked. I know they work, still do most of those things to this day because I know they work, and they worked for me and brought good things into my life, even during a difficult time.
All right. So we have, oh, look, I'm so excited. We have two other questions. So we have one. So we'll keep with Susan, and we'll start with this quick question of, do you plan to go on a book tour?
I would love to go on a book tour, and I'm working on speaking engagements, and I've got another podcast scheduled next week. So I would love to go on a book tour. And that's on my list of, besides having a business, I got to work on getting the book tour and getting that in place. So yes, I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using law of attraction to make it happen. Yes.
Cue law of attraction.
Book tours. Absolutely.
And then another question we have is from John Thompson. That's a familiar name. So great session, and congrats on your book. How often do you think of what you want to call into your life through the law of attraction, and how do you stay patient throughout the process? I think, yeah, that's actually a wonderful question. Like, patience, like, you want to claim victory in advance, but like, how are you patient in like those things actually arriving?
That is a great question. And I think what has happened for me, and I'm not the most patient person, just to be real honest, but what I do is if there's something that I'm working on or that I want, I write it down and I get very specific. And I'll give you a quick example in the book. When I had to buy a house, and going through the divorce, a bunch of things had to happen in a certain order before I could buy my house. And I was buying my house in probably the worst time to buy a house in the last, I don't know how many years, where everything was way expensive and there was no inventory. And everybody was flipping out, worried that I was not going to find a house and be able to afford it. And I was very calm about that. I would be there when I needed it to be there, meaning all the other steps had to happen. My realtor didn't want to take me shopping because she didn't want me to fall in love with something before I was ready to buy. And I said, no, I just wanted to get a look or get a feel. And I said, it'll be okay. My house will be there when I need it to be. And I had written a list of 10 things I wanted in my house on August 30th. I found my house October 2nd, and it had 9 of the 10 things. And the one thing it didn't have was a basement. And I really think the universe was saying, you don't need a basement because you're just going to fill it with junk. So now I thank the universe that I don't have a basement. But I think to be patient, write down what you want, focus on it, think about it all the time. And a lot of times you'll get signs along the way that it's going to be okay. And so I would get signs of things that, like, something would happen, what people would call a coincidence. And I knew that was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to work out. And you kind of have to have a little leap of faith on that too. But the more you use the law of attraction and practice it, that little faith becomes easier when when you're making that jump, knowing that something will happen. So, and I kept writing it down, thinking about it, talking about it, telling everybody what my house, what I wanted in my house, and just putting it out there. And it usually things like when you can stay positive and keep yourself in a good spot. You can't be like depressed or angry and make things happen. It's much more difficult. So I focused on, I exercised, and I went out and did fun things with my friends, and they helped. And, take your dog for a walk, or have a dance party in your living room, or whatever it is that makes you happy. Exactly. Do those things, and then that makes it easier again to manifest what you want. But you got to keep yourself in a good place, keep your vibration up or your energy level up to make those things happen. And they will, but recognize those signs and take those as a thank you, universe. I'm ready for when you're going to bring it to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think you're actually like naturally transitioning into this, but I'm so curious. I mean, first of all, I want to thank you so much for an incredible discussion we've had so far. I mean, do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to share with our broader audiences?
I think probably the main thing would be, again, focus on what you want, not what you don't want. And to be grateful for what you have already. That's a focus on gratitude, and all the things that you have makes it easier to bring in the things that you want. And to focus on what brings you joy. I think we get so busy running around doing everything we need to do that we don't take the time to go, you know what, I really love to do this, and I'm going to carve out some time just for me to go do something that brings me joy. Focus on joy for yourself, because if you're joyful and happy, you're going to spread more of it, and more good things will come. So take care of you and be kind to yourself.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Lisa. That's so helpful. I gotta remind myself all the time to be kind to myself. Oof,
well, I think
Lord.
we're also hard on ourselves, and we need to give ourselves some grace, and know that we're doing the best, and be nice to ourselves. Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. I think we can all work on that.
Yeah, and if you want the world for your best friend, you should want the world for yourself too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lisa. It was an absolute privilege and pleasure. I tried to say those words at the same time. An absolute privilege to have you on. I learned so much about the law of attraction. I'm just so drawn to your radiant positivity and your consistency, and it's incredible to see the what your book has already done in the world. And just thank you so much for being part of the author journey. I'm sure that our live audience members, learned a lot from you today. And anybody who's watching the recording as it lives on YouTube will continue to learn from this wonderful discussion.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And the program was wonderful. So thank you for all your help with that too.
Of course. Yay, we got some. So just super quickly, we have dance party. Got it. Stay in good space and keep the vibration up. Love it.
Perfect.
And another note from Susan. Thank you. Love this. Woo! Well, thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you both. Thank you. Okay.
All right, beautiful people. Thank you so much again for joining us for a wonderful coffee chat. If you guys have any recommendations for topics that you would like to see, drop them in the comments below. We do read them and we do get ideas from you all. There's also our contact information below, whether it be through Instagram or it be through like other avenues like email. More specifically, you can contact myself and my co-host, Mackenzie Finklea, at the handles indicated below, trickling on that ticker. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your potentially, well, most likely evening or night, potentially afternoon, potentially morning, wherever you are in the world. Bye, beautiful people, and don't forget to enjoy your beverage of choice.